Hey everyone, and welcome back to Just Start, the podcast where we equip budding entrepreneurs with the practical know-how to launch and scale their Web3 ventures. I'm Rish from the Boom platform. If you're at the crucial idea stage or just taking your first step to build something new, you're in the right place. Our goal today, as always, is to extract actionable strategies on everything from marketing and community growth to getting those first vital users and delivering real value from day one. Today, we have a truly fascinating guest, Russ Franklin, a serial entrepreneur and the founder of Hubzz, a next generation social metaverse focused on authentic, community driven experiences. Russ's journey is anything but ordinary. It spans from nuclear weapons security to NFTs, and since 2017, he's been a key figure in blockchain, leading adoption initiatives at Stacks, integrating major IPs into virtuous digital marketplace, and even developing early NFT tools for iconic projects like Axie Infinity and CryptoKitties. Russ is all about blending technical innovation with genuine human connection. Russ, a huge welcome to Just Start. So, how did you go from nuclear weapon security to pioneering early NFT tools and now funding Hubs?
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. I love what you're doing. I love the format. Wow. I think where I started really originated from me trying to buy time to decide what I wanted to do in life. So even the decision to join the military and how I ended up guarding nuclear weapons and all that was me trying to gain more input on life so I could make a better decision. And a lot of that ideology is what sort of led me to places where I had these massive opportunities to work with founders early on, be in the blockchain space so early, just being super passion driven. And honestly, following serendipity to the coolest places that you could imagine. But I can say my transition from, getting out of the military and then getting really, really excited about the blockchain space came from digging into how people were making money online more as like I was watching all these documentaries, hobbies and things. And it just was so fascinating to see these platforms like Entropia Universes. Someone purchased a planet and then they fractionalized it and were able to take their 300K investment and make like millions a year. It wasn't that I was pursuing that. I just thought it was fascinating that that was even possible on the internet. And it was almost like as if I was primed for the NFT culture that came shortly after that, because I discovered NFTs by way of the Trust Wallet and just scrolling through the 6 different options that they had at the time. Even OpenSea was doing beta testing and really getting to figure out the why behind the what about the space. It was like I felt sort of born for it just because, I led with passion, curiosity, and honestly, I think I hopefully can convey that in today's talk is that you have 4 times the output if you're following your authentic self, and that's going to serve you well in the trenches of being an entrepreneur because you need that to fall back on, and that's what you need. It's what do they say? It's not timing the market, it's time in the market.
Yeah.
They say that for trading, but I think it goes across the board in my opinion. So
Can you share in terms of after you left the military, you spent a short term in Axie Infinity building the tools. Were you paid there or were you just like dabbling in terms of
so
experience?
yeah, they were looking for utility uh to grow their community. And I joined to pretty much put together these game mechanics that were based off of, if you know anything about the game, they have these little cute little potato looking characters. They have stats. And we created mini games that aligned with those stats. Racing game, we had a Axie Flappy Bird clone, but essentially, really like it gave utility while people were waiting for the bigger vision. So it was almost like small milestones that we were hired to go in there and do, and then really, build things that the community wanted. And so that was my early stint there. I was just in the right place at the right time to be in those conversations, to even be considered to help build and scale. And I also took a lot from what I learned at Stacks as well. That was a great learning place for me. But yeah, so but the other ones were actually I didn't mention Nifty Gateway. Crazy enough, Winklevoss twins acquired them from Gemini, but early on with them, incentivized their community a little bit with some leaderboard stuff. But a lot of times, believe it or not, like I would do a lot of this stuff for free because I'm the type of person where I see a problem and I just want to fix it. So I put together a proposal and they're like, oh my gosh, we haven't even thought about this stuff. And so they just took that and ran with it. And to be quite honest with you, like that's how I got into a lot of places and how I started my real journey as an entrepreneur is I told a guy his logo sucked. And I redid it for him. But the reason why I redid it for him is because I wanted to be the icon people tapped on whenever they opened the application. It was like a challenge for me. But it's how I've literally hopped around and been really fortunate enough to afford to chase my passions is curiosity and wanting to fix things without being asked to, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there's a common theme that seems to be appearing from all the interviews I've been doing so far. One is that high agency. Second thing is always work before reward. And they were putting in all the passion as yourselves. Just put out your work, whether it sticks or not is secondary. But all this high agency throughput is a form of experimentation. I'm sensing the same thing happened to you as well, or you took that path as well, unknowingly.
Yeah. It may be a common theme with entrepreneurs and why they have to create their own thing. Cause I would take so much agency that my default mode would be trying to have a seat at the executive table because I genuinely wanted to do and make the right decisions. And sometimes that would kind of cause like discourse. And so funny enough, like the reason why I ended up feeling like I had to start my own thing all these times is because I want to always do right by the community that I'm building for. I want to always be transparent and I want to like make data led decisions and basically create the best output. So it really kind of like ushered me in the direction to do my own thing in order to create something that I feel is absolutely fair and then aligns with the Web3 ethos that I've learned to fall in love with and understand and realize why it's worth protecting at all costs.
So, from what I've understood, the Hubs aims for authentic, community-driven experiences. What specific unmet need did you see, and what was your just start moment for Hubs? What were the absolute first one or two concrete steps you took?
Hopefully I can narrow this down, but with my experience getting to work with major IPs like Paramount Pictures, Legendary Studios, in the early days when it was cool to have like those big names involved and getting to sort of teach them a thing or two about what the space sort of represents and what scarcity even means. I basically helped create the release strategies, also the narrative behind it. And I got some really cool exposure, but I also got to see the rough edges of the IP market and these serial channels of influence that really pulled the strings of what opportunities creators have. And there's where I'm like, I want to help liberate creators to have a platform that can showcase their creations and fair exposure and ultimately really proving the value of NFTs because I don't feel like that they've had a fair shot. Now we can go down and the utility rabbit trail, but I'm trying to pretty much give a holistic place for NFTs to exist where you have the flexibility to show off to your friends that you own things, since that is such a huge thing for collectors. Otherwise, it's like, do you even have it? Tree falls in a forest if no one's there to see it. Did it really fall? Same thing with collectibles. So you need a way to showcase, right? And I'm like, okay, well, you need a way to showcase these NFTs. That's when the virtual world layer comes on it and you wrap in the social media aspect. So I decided that I wanted a really cool place to showcase my collectibles, but also a place where I want to actually spend my time. And it was originally inspired by Clubhouse. The seed that really started it all is the accessibility, the ease of access, and the fact that I could pop into a group chat at the end of my day and kind of like feel like I'm a part of something, a conversation, hop on stage or whatever. Trying to capture that magic and then tying in the discoverability stuff that I know is required for creators to be seen and leveling the playing field and fighting off the suits from coming in and just reiterating the same models with the new Web3 veneer. And I felt like if I didn't do it, maybe no one would. And that scared me a bit. And I believe that one person can, with a vision, can change things. And though I don't know, I feel like I was almost like forced to do this in a way, but that's just me being cheesy.
It's not cheesy at all. I think that's when the most successful projects come from, in my opinion, because you have the drive to go through the obstacles or when things get tough. You have a mission-driven purpose. Can I just check, is what you're building similar to what Second Life is?
It definitely is an analog in some aspects. People compare us to Habbo. People compare it, depending on the demographic, they can compare us to Club Penguin. But it's like you can also compare us to Discord. And essentially, the idea of a community online, like I believe, has not even scratched the surface yet. But there's also nothing convenient enough to provide that feasibly for the busy adults of today, which is essentially what happened. We had the euphoria of the pandemic. Everyone goes back to work. Now we all of a sudden don't have time to have these fully immersive virtual worlds. But it actually, the fact that people started considering it was a validation point that the 3D internet actually has a place in the future. It is not, the way that they are building it was not for today. So you actually have to build something that is essentially as lightweight and accessible as something like Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse. Even the algorithmic discovery is a paramount integration. Since 2016, TikTok raised the bar. I mean, Facebook shifted into algorithmic discovery. They also changed from being a social network to social media. It's consumption oriented. So we actually encrypt your data. We never sell it like everyone does. We don't use it to train AI models like Discord does in your DMs. But we realize that you can't not have algorithmic discovery in a society that has an 8 to 12-second attention span. You need to get them involved in the experiences nearly instantly. And that comes from curation. And that's one of the things that we do so differently, is the fact that you could see us like taking the TikTok and Discord, and if they had a baby, that's how we kind of approach discovery of live communities. So like imagine being presented a Discord whenever some things are popping off. They're doing an NFT collection. So you jump in there at the right time, and the chat's flooding and stuff like that. We would already know to present that to you just because of your past interactions with the application. But now instead of Discord, you have not just 3D immersion, it goes actually all the way to virtual reality. So it's like we actually give the full spectrum. We're not trying to make you sacrifice the fully immersive virtual world experience that we know we're headed to, but we're trying to convert social media users into the idea of a virtual world. You can press one button to have the first person perspective, or you can go into the full virtual reality. But we give the full spectrum because we realize like it is where we're headed. It is going to be expected eventually, but we also want to build something for right now that has the potential for mainstream adoption, today. And that's where I think we really offer a really interesting product, because we actually meet them where they are. You just can't expect busy adults to consider integrating a virtual world into their day to day, but you can expect them to watch a long form podcast on their way to work or watch a Twitch streamer. I disagree with total parasocial relationships. And I think that Dunbar's number is important, 150 meaningful relationships, keep up with their name and stuff, but also like mentally, like what can you handle? And we try to build a community platform around these notions that are there. It's like latent demands in human psychology. Like now that we have AI that's so readily available to give you like deep research in the seconds, you can build some incredible things based on true psychology, hopefully for the greater good of society. Like what are people going out of their way to create that could be done in one step instead of them using 3 steps to get to that thing? Like, and that's like an easy win. You can deliver something super easy for that. If you want to get somewhere quickly, just go after latent demands.
What were the absolute 1 to 2 concrete steps that you first identified in terms of latent demand? And what did you take in terms of steps to address them? Because I'm assuming at this stage you had no resources or very little resources, or you had already VCs backing you.
In terms of understanding latent demands, I was building for the content creators that I used to actually do spotlight interviews for NFT artists back in the day. And I could talk to them. Posturing to me is like one of the most important ways to almost become a subject matter expert of the population you're building for. Before you invest time in trying to guess what they want, understand what they want, and actually that can only really arise if you just spend time learning about the problem and then kind of like going from there. I think the best products, the ones that are timeless, I believe those are the ones that put a lot of careful thought into synthesizing a solution, running through every edge case, losing sleep at night, because genuinely like they cared about the problem And if you lead with that, you're really going to create some really incredible stuff, and it insulates you from burnout.
Once you identify latent demand, because you started talking to your creators in terms of what issues they were facing, you started working on your project. They became your test subjects in terms of your iteration process. You give them a design, or did you build something for them?
It evolved. So it started with conversations. Then Figma, super awesome for mock-ups and things, but kind of like laying things out, but never stopping the dialogue and really iterating without really having to do anything outside. It was all very feasible. If you're trying to create action steps, it would be talk to your future demographic that want to use this product and really integrate with their communities and where they spend their time, especially leisure time. I don't know how this could parallel to every single field because, like, let's say you wanted to, be a innovative chemist. I have no clue unless your workplace is that. And I do see that a lot of times as people will see something going on in their workplace. They're not delivering a solution. And I think that is a great place to start for innovation as well. You spend a couple of years learning about how something is done and then areas where you feel like could use a little bit more emphasis and then kind of innovate off of that knowledge. I think that is totally respectable.
Now, for founders listening who want to build a genuinely engaged community around their Web3 project, especially around something experiential like a metaverse, what are the foundational low cost strategies to attract and nurture those first 100? I mean, when you built Hubzz, you already spoke to your creators that you are engaged in. What was the low cost strategies you employed to get them?
I think one really incredible thing in Web3 that has really become the norm is the value of trust. And essentially, with the idea of Web3 transparency, you just can't get away with a ton that you could in the old models. Like my benefit was that I had just been living in this space since 2017, so I literally developed a relationship. I mean, it literally takes 2 years to really get to know someone. Like, truly, you go through all these different iterations, ups and downs, but like in those that stick around for 2 years, like that's how genuinely how long it takes to get to know someone. For your core foundational users, like you really need to make sure that those are most dedicated members by just hanging or going into a forum and then posting, trying to soft shill and really developing a strong core in the beginning of your ride or dies. The people who actually have that buy-in to the vision is so incredibly important, that it also comes at the cost of being transparent and authentic and real. And so if you want those people that are going to stick around, you need to make sure that you're willing to be open and upfront. And hopefully the project isn't just a cash grab, because it's easier if you have some really true and awesome motives behind what you're doing to get some early buy-in, because everyone's like, yes, I want a piece of this world changing thing. Not everyone's building for that these days. But I think if you really want the products that are going to last the test of time, and this should be the goal for every Web3 project, whatever you're building outlasts you. Like, when you pass away, like this, given the chains is supported, hopefully, and if it's built correctly. But the goal has always been to have these digital assets, to have these infrastructures continue on. I mean, that's where the real value driver is the fact that this digital asset I can pass down to my kid can pass it down to his kids. And I think that everyone needs to kind of see things through that lens before they really get involved. Do they even care for it to last that long? I think that all helps onboard the most authentic community that will become your core, that will help you stay motivated, because it's not always going to be easy.
For getting these 100 people or your core community, what were the marketing or storytelling approaches that have worked for you in cutting through the noise? I'm assuming when you first pitched Hubzz as a concept, some individuals immediately got it. Some were like, I'm
Yeah.
not sure. So what were the pointers? How did you sell them for this early stage?
Yeah. Like, I explained one way of kind of like creating a timeless version of bootstrapping, right? The other, which is just as great, it's the gamification of these systems. Essentially, you'll see someone with a Twitter following of 2 jump to like 80,000 in a week, and it just doesn't make any sense. But if you really create the opportunity for people who came for the original financial upside. If you create gamification mechanics that don't last forever, you need your product to actually be sticky enough to create the return value. You can't always just pay people to be there. But the thing I love about Web3 is the ability to systematically reward early adopters for their participation. So I think there's an opportunity for product led growth strategies that is much more available and expected in Web3. And hopefully we get more products and services out of it, because now people are able to scale a community using those incentive mechanics and then hopefully graduating them to actual users that aren't just incentivized because they love the product, but they would have never seen the product unless they're originally incentivized in this sort of way. It's like a really cool thing that I'm seeing. And I think that people should leverage this. I think airdrops are cool. I don't think that you should leverage that forever. So have a plan. I'm going to jumpstart my community this way, and that's going to ride into this go-to-market strategy that's going to keep them coming back. And so let that be the first stepping stone. If you really want to like save some time, I actually have a gamification mechanism to jumpstart Hubzz in a way that I believe meets the standard of Web3 today. I don't think people realize that now people are more kind of expecting some sort of retroactive reward for being involved in a project early on. And if you're not doing that, I think you're a little legged.
Can you share those strategies? How do you get people to, put it bluntly, stay around?
Well, well, one thing I think Mr. Beast explained with his videos, I don't know if he holds true to this anymore, but early on, he wouldn't release a video that he wouldn't watch himself, right? I mean, that's just like create applications and that you would actually truly want to use, be your demographic, I think is the most helpful way to actually create good products. I mean, a lot of people are they were kind of building a solution for themselves, and then one of their buddies was like, "Oh, that's awesome," and they're like, "Wait, you like that?" And they're like, "Yeah, it make my life easier." And then it kind of boom. You don't always know what's going to hit, especially when you're innovating, unless you're just cherry picking off what is working in other products, which is fine. You can take what is working for them and just synthesize it with your innovation. And that's really, again, doing research, seeing what is working out there is super easy to do now with AI and whatnot. So if you want to create stickiness without like, breaking your brain, like doing something that's totally innovative, take what has worked in the past. Like, so for instance, we have a mechanic within Hubzz where creators can be tipped. I actually call it the Pal World approach. Have you heard of Pal World?
No.
Back at like, oh man, I hope someone who listens to this, like, I know what he's talking about. This totally makes sense. So Pal World basically kind of took a lot of things. They took like the nostalgia of Pokemon, like mechanics from the game Rust. Anyway, they synthesized this amazing game because they took a bunch of pieces of other games that have just been proven to work. And if you want to like make sure that your stuff is sticky, like look at things that are working and then just innovate from there. And there's nothing negative about doing something like that. Like that is innovation. We take what works, we add on things that make it work better. And your consumers are getting served even better, and then the world's happy. And I think those are the two. I don't want to convolute it any further. I think those are the two. Build for yourself, cherry pick, don't clone. Don't be a Tron. Cherry pick. I don't know. Someone who knows about Ethereum getting cloned and made into Tron will think that's funny. Like so that's my best two bits of advice, and I hope it gives like two pathways. There's the hard way, and then there's the cherry picking, innovative, still respectable, but you're going to move a lot quicker because you're going off of proven, time tested systems, mechanics, things that people have already adopted. You don't have to teach them anything new. You don't have to prove the value. You don't have to prove that you need something.
So the one part I struggle even trying to understand this is because I'm not native Web3. Not really. I mean, I'm in crypto and Bitcoin, but building for Web3, if you ask me now, Rish, tell me 3 game mechanics that create stickiness, I would fail straight away, But if I would come to you, since you have a plethora of experience, and they say like, Russ, I'm stuck, I'm helping Dan build Boom. I have zero knowledge in terms of what do we do to create stickiness.
Yeah.
So what would you advise me there?
What actions are you trying to actually perform within the application, and can that sort of be gamified to a metric that can later be rewarded? And like that's sort of go to is you want to align with the goals of the platform. You don't just like, oh, every time you log in, you're going to get a point, and that point is going to attribute to an airdrop later on. That's not real. I feel like the best way to do it is you're trying to get them to the goal of what the actual app does. That way, they can actually have that experience that you're trying to create. Hopefully making their life a little bit easier, showing them some entertainment, and then they'll get a laugh. Whatever the goal is, whatever you think that's going to have the staying power when the incentives are not there, you kind of build the incentive mechanisms around that. So you get them closer to that aha experience, that aha moment. I actually like this. I think if you're being smart, you would kind of go in that direction, but it does take a lot of careful thought and consideration. Just nail your flows. And especially if you cater to several different stakeholders, you want to kind of mind map that out or get the flows locked in. And I think that's where I would start. Like for me, one of the biggest incentive drivers within Hubzz, and the only thing that's worked in virtual worlds is events. And so I've pretty much created our system's lifeblood is really centered around this concept of events. So even attending events actually earns for every minute that you're actively there. You can't be AFK. We're basically tabulating that, which gets us in what we believe to be the highest conversion point of our application, which essentially overflows into the other aspects that hopefully create staying power, stickiness, things like that. So yeah, I guess it's like knowing what your best places would create the biggest conversion points. I think you should do this after you create a really well thought out go to market strategy, and then build these gamified systems around the go to market strategy, because you already know what sort of KPIs you're trying to accomplish. Another thing is that our platform is not going to be successful unless we have a plethora of content creators. So we need something that gets them in there to use the product as an extra thing on their tool belt to reach their audience. How do we do that? Like, okay, we could do a leaderboard, and is this something that they would even like consider? And how are we going to allocate on this leaderboard? Is it going to be cyclical? But then you can actually, as long as you're transparent about what you plan to do, you can even drum up excitement ahead of time. Because like they're doing a crazy cool leaderboard thing. I'm going to get my buddies involved. It doesn't even have to be a system that's completely out. It could just be on your GitHub documentation. So be transparent with your gamification early. That way people are thinking like, man, not only is this product or service kind of cool, but it could have a tremendous upside for me. It's like a win-win if I stick around, subscribe to the notifications. And then I think that ties back into the growing your community, back to, the first 100. It starts with being transparent. But what also comes along being transparent is you got to be fair. You can't just be transparent and awful. To have a real competitive edge, see if you can work out your business model to be more fair than the next guy, because that's where this is headed. If we don't need a middleman in Web3, it's going to go away eventually. And so you really need to dial in on like, are these fees really fair? Or like you can really get a sense for how you can be postured in a way that actually gets people to be like, oh, this actually might be a good one because they're treating me a little better than the next guy.
So Russ, for Hubzz, because I've not used your products, wanting to understand here, do I pay to use a service or is there ads involved? The reason I'm asking this question is that monetization is a huge factor here. In a lot of Web3, people want to earn. That's why they build Web3 projects. That's why we got into crypto. Hopefully you retire early and you don't die at your desk. In terms of Hubzz, is there tokenization involved, or is that because right now the big thing is points? To kick the stickiness, you spend time here, you create all these points in the hope, maybe in the next 12 to 18 months, who stays at the end, the most points gets converted to tokens when you go to TGE.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for builders who might be building Web3 SaaS or an NFT project, for using Hubzz as a model, what actually works when you just say like incentivization, the 100 creators? Are you using points, or are you just saying like, I'm not going to charge you fees, your fees elsewhere is ridiculous, we value you, we want you to be wealthy or prosper? I'm trying to figure out that part of the mechanics there.
So I have the benefit of novelty. So I think that has helped a lot with the incentivization and how I measure how much I think their time is worth in my platform. The fact is, for content creators, I'm giving a very premium experience or a very premium way to engage their audience. Sometimes those followers are converted into true fans. True fans are only 5%, but those 5% of true fans are the ones who are buying the tickets, who are getting the merch, who are essentially your ride or dies. But they actually create 95% of the value. So why would you not want to provide a premium experience to your true fans in a way that makes them feel like they're closer to you? So it's less of a parasocial relationship.
To get the first 100, I understand that you engage them constantly, talk to them, treat them well where they might have been sidelined perhaps elsewhere. That's one element in terms of stickiness. Iteration, I think, helps tremendously. But the one part I cannot wrap my head around is like right now, people are fed up with the point system.
Yeah.
And doing tokens early on, it's a product in itself because you got to manage the token flow. What do you get utility on the tokens? It's product in itself, I feel.
Yeah, I go back to it's an innovation problem because it's like people are trying to rinse, cycle, and repeat, but people are just too smart. Like, wait a minute, this is exactly the same thing I just got burned on before. Like, that's that part. Like, you can cherry pick, but you also need that magic of innovation of like creating something that actually is different enough to make them kind of forget about the negative experiences in the past. You have to understand that I'm building a metaverse when everyone and their mom has a negative stigma towards that demo. Like that's like if I bring it up to an investor, it's like I just brought up a terrible ex-girlfriend that was abusive, right? It's not a good conversation. So I think you also need to really dial into the way that you communicate it and maybe go outside of the norm for your audience. Like present this to a demographic that maybe hasn't been so harshly burnt because the Web3 space is still super small. So if you orient your product to where it actually has a higher chance for adoption outside of Web3, I think that you're going to actually have much better results. And it's really just how you communicate it. I think the best gamification and tokenomics are the ones that surprise people with the reward. I think that's awesome. I also love it how some people will guess what the reward will be. You don't even have to be so upfront with it. You just kind of like leak it. We're definitely going to make sure our early adopters are taken care of, and you need to follow through on it. It's a balancing act. I think you have less of that problem if you go outside of the current ecosystem and do the smart thing, which is actually try to get wider adoption to a technology that ends up liberating people anyway. It's the same thing with me. I've literally had to change up what I even call this platform. It's not a metaverse, it's a social virtual world. They're not NFTs, they're digital collectibles. And I've gone even further with storytelling to really mask the annoying lingo of crypto that has really burnt people so badly in the past to where they would never even want to date their ex-girlfriend again, which I'm like, she's nice. I promise. She's here for the long haul. You need to put a ring on it. And I'm the guy who's like, yeah, she's a keeper, bro. Web3 is a keeper.
So I want to pull on that thread, Russ. Literally lessons from the trenches that you have experienced now. You just shared in terms of the lingo is a big issue. Perhaps if you're building for Web3, your customer base might not be actually Web3 users, could be Web2 users. And that perhaps is the place to hit home run. Now, what are the 2 or 3 of the biggest mistakes you see new Web3 entrepreneurs make when it comes to community building or in terms of marketing? And what's your advice for these individuals?
Yeah, I think number one is treating community building like a marketing message. Like, I mean, even using community as a way of scaling and things, it's a bit weird because we're not even really like a forum isn't a community, a chat room isn't really a community. It doesn't suffice all these areas of what a community is.
Russ, I want to pull one thread there. What's your definition of community then?
It's a lot to do with my thesis on the fact that I believe that there's a lot of facets that create a community and really mirror what the golden standard for community is IRL communities. So, and it also goes into there's different kind of types of communities because no one realizes that your family's a community type, your work is a community type, and there's another community type called the third place, which is who you would interface with at the coffee shop every day when you visit there, and what everyone got deprived of during the pandemic and what virtual worlds were based on is creating a third place, a social town square for serendipitous interactions and things. But in terms of what a community is. It's essentially a gathering under a common purpose or goal within a product. I mean, the goal within a product or service is delivering the best product or service. And then the people who want to stick around, and be core members of thing, see value in that thing. I think the most important aspect of a community is corralling around a singular idea, a shared goal. And the way that parallels it would be a shared passion for a product, a shared passion for a game, like advocacy group, like all those things, but it's all under a shared purpose or thing. It's really difficult to have a PFP project. And the only thing that's really corralling them is number go up. It'll work for a little bit because the euphoria is there. We're all here. The louder we shout, our PFP is awesome, numbers go up. So everyone says this, we're good. But that's just like, doesn't have staying power, doesn't feel like it means anything. And genuinely, it doesn't unless you're creating a culture around it. You're actually doing stuff. I think it is multifaceted. My stance is that you also need a sense of place, and that's important. You need a sense of longevity, the sense of things are fair, and that the ownership Web3 provides really helps really enhance the idea of community online, is that you can actually own things. It's not just a centralized system with a kill switch that one guy is like one crazy decision away from wrecking the past 5 years of your life building something on a platform. But number one is corralling around a shared vision, goal, hope, idea, and that creates a lot of staying power. And that's why I think it's really important to actually care about the solution you're providing, because that's when the authentic community happens. And if they find you organically, like that is the best way for someone to discover you. Like that's the best marketing you can have, is word of mouth. Again, the really common theme is community will really start to blossom out of just being transparent and then honest about the problem you're trying to solve. And the reason why I keep going back to that is I believe it also makes your job so much easier. It's way less convincing, because I think a lot of time with marketing, you spend time trying to convince people of something, and this really cuts down because they already believe you. Like, and starting from there, it just saves so much time.
So please correct me if I'm wrong in summarizing what you shared here. One, individuals use the idea of community more as a sales avenue, that I got a product, I want to sell something to you, rather than curate something everlasting. Then in terms of actual creating PMF and quality of a product, it's more about hype cycles. And is it fair to say, from what you've shared, those are the two common pitfalls you would advise individuals to stay away from, by being one, authentic, transparent, build what you want to use for yourself, and then add in some layer of stickiness or incentivization?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this the other day. The ones that are willing to put everything on the line to make it work. Like, I'm not saying to freaking write a crappy product into the ground and to like burn yourself out trying to make it successful. But I do believe that following your conviction and then assessing that conviction, it's like a test you can do on yourself before you get involved. But you don't have the luxury of making decisions based on what we believe in more. I thought it was funny that even having the opportunity to be an entrepreneur, like that's a luxury that's not afforded. And it's normally because you know someone who can give you a buffer to be able to even chase this thing. And actually be able to strategize around a problem that you really, really want to create a solution for. So it's interesting because we have a societal disadvantage for allowing ample time to really plan and create something that you have like insane conviction over, because of the way that like free time is so rare. But you need undisturbed time to think and process and marinate on, to really come up with the products or services that all create the unicorns. You also need network, people who will buy in early, believe in you, and give you the runway to even like get a freaking pitch deck together to convince people, to get even more runway, and then to get a small following or a small user base, and then get even more runway for even the next growth.
Now, looking ahead, how do you see platforms like Hubzz evolving the way we connect and build communities online? And of course, how can listeners learn more about Hubzz and your work, and how can they follow you?
Sure. I truly hope we raise the standard of what communities can look like online, and how your time is rewarded for using platforms. I would like to think that we're so fair that it makes you wonder, is this legitimate? And I hope that becomes like a new standard for how we expect Web3 platforms to be. And I genuinely hope that's how things do pan out. I call it actually a new way to be online. And hopefully we do. We create a new way to be online, one that really parallels how things work IRL in terms of the rights you have, the things, ownership, all the good stuff, and community as well. And let me just be clear, we're not trying to replace community. I want to be very like, the gold standard of community is in real life. That is the most enriching. Everyone needs it. If you've been in the house for more than a week, go to a park, just be around others. I don't want anyone to ever think that we're creating a movie, Ready Player One. We're trying to take the lessons from Ready Player One and even looking at society where they're at right now and things, but build from those lessons. Even though it's just a movie, these people thought through these things because they learned something and they had it. So for us, it's a stepping stone back into meaningful relationships, meaningful community, because right now you're going to social media and you're consuming advertisers every four cards when you're scrolling. Half of the people online are KOLs, then you don't even know if they're being honest about what they're saying. Like, there's really no real place to experience authentic community right now. And that's just my stance. And some people will argue with it. Hopefully my thesis will kind of glaze that over. But yeah, so that's my biggest hope, is we really raise the bar for what it means to be online. I know it sounds grandiose, but I just think that it, like, the internet can be more fun, the internet can be more fair, and Web3 should stand by what it was originally created for. And hopefully we can kind of like meet that expectation and even grow from it. We have a Discord. The way you spell Hubzz is HUBZZ. So it's hub with two Z's. It's very intentional. You can join our Discord. Same Twitter is Hubzz HQ. That's where you're going to get the latest and greatest. We're in the middle of a seed round, so you're not going to see a whole lot until we close this out, and then I can spin up the entire team, and that should be very soon. And yeah, like, stay tuned for fun things coming down the pipeline, and hopefully that's enjoyed across the board, or at least for our demographic. I retweet myself on Hubzz HQ, so if you see there, you'll probably see me, but there's Russ Frankie, RUSSFRANKY. I would love to have people. And I'm also open for calls. Like, I love discovery calls and just chatting with people who have interest in this area. And I mean, I essentially doing what I explained. Like, I love, getting to meet the people who plan on using the product, and sourcing feedback and creating a really cool feedback loop and how we can iterate and improve. So anyone who's just interested in general, I'll make time for sure. So yeah, I think that covers it.
Russ, that has been incredibly insightful, honestly. Thank you very much for that. Your journey and the principles behind Hubzz, what you offer in terms of a powerful roadmap for everyone looking to build community-driven experiences here, has been absolutely brilliant. I know that I'm going to take a lot of actionable takeaways from what you just discussed. And for our listeners, I hope if you're feeling motivated, remember the Boon platform is here to support you when you're ready to take the leap. Until next time, keep building, keep innovating, and just start your journey.